Hey everybody, it's James here, and today we're talking about your leadership superpower. In fact, this is one of my most favorite things to talk about, and that's because I wish I'd have known this at the beginning of my career. I still remember somebody first promoted me into leadership, and I was just excited to go to the meeting, right? There was always these leader meetings, and I always wondered what goes on there. So anyways, the day I finally get promoted to be a leader, then all of a sudden all these pressures came on me, like, oh, what does a good leader need to be? And of course, we all come to leadership the same way, right? Like if you're in leadership right now, or you're CEO, or you run your own company, we usually got there because we were good at something, we had a good attitude, we were hard workers, and people trusted you, right? You're just a likable person. And so you got promoted to leadership, or you started your own company, whatever it might be. And in a sense, our guide for the path forward is typically just the people who have been the leaders in our lives up to that point, which is not always the best, right? So for me at that point, it was bosses at mostly low level jobs. It was football coaches. It was yelling at you. So these were the things imprinted on me about leadership. So I remember when I stepped into a leadership role, I began to think like, well, how do you lead, right? Like, how do you need to be? And so much of the image of what I had of being a leader was not who I was fundamentally in terms of my strengths, my core talents. And so what that happened, that created a great dissonance because I was trying to step into a person that I wasn't. And it took me a number of years to figure that out. I don't think nobody above me had figured that out either, so it's not like they were passing on the message. But anyways, as I began to realize and stumble onto the whole concept of strength-based leadership, everything changed. And honestly, as I learned this stuff, I took a big sigh of relief because then I realized, oh, it's okay to just be me. Like, I can just be me, the best version of me, and I can do a great job as a leader. And it's true for you. So regardless of where you're at, what level maybe you're an HR professional and you're thinking about your own leadership, but you're thinking company-wide, I got some things for you here today. Or you're a business owner and you maybe got into, or whatever reason you started your business, you got into it and then realized, oh, wait a minute, now I'm a leader because I have all these people that I have to lead. And how do I do that? Or you're a manager and you got promoted and you're asking the same question. But first, before I do that, in one of our programs where we exclusively work with only business owners or CEOs, it's called Natural Born Leaders, and one of the first things we do when we're taking these business owners through this process is we're helping them understand just this concept of leading from strengths. Because when you start a business, you're wearing like 17 hats, and over time you've got to start giving some away. But typically business owners don't give enough of them away, and they keep the wrong ones because what they should be wearing is, as complexity grows in an organization, they should focus more and more on their natural talents, which then create strengths. And so this is actually an image that we use, is that instead of a dialed-in, optimized F1 car of leaders, executives, CEOs, they're like the truck on the right. Overloaded, too many tasks. Some business owners feel like you can't take a vacation, you can't even take time away from your business, or if you do take a vacation, you're still checking in every day, and it's not really much of a vacation now, is it? And so when it comes to strength-based leadership, listen, these are some of the reasons why you want to lead from your strengths, because it's where you're at your best when you're working from strength. Things are easier, you're happier, you're going to be more effective, you're going to be more engaged, you're going to be more magnetic, honestly, as a leader, because you just bring a different energy. Secondly, as complexity increases, you need to rely on your strengths more and more. So again, think about this. Usually organizations just continue to get more complex, right? We add layers, we add staff, we add departments, and as complexity grows, it becomes more important for you to lean into your strengths because you have less and less time to do everything, right? Thirdly, when leaders focus on developing strengths, they create a positive and empowering work environment that fosters growth, engagement, and productivity. So when you're leading people, it's not just about how it is for you, but it's the culture that you're creating. And you just create a stronger culture when you're coming from a place of strength. And finally, a strength-based approach to leadership is adaptable and it's sustainable because it can be applied across different industries, organizations, cultural contexts. And it doesn't matter what generation somebody is in, what culture that they were raised in. When we're talking about core talents and strengths, it's a universal language. And Gallup, of course, is one of the big players in the whole strength movement, and we use Gallup assessments in one of our programs with the CEOs. And it's not the only strength assessment, obviously, that's out there, but I saw somebody explaining online, and I thought this was a good metaphor. So, we hear the word strengths, we hear the word talents, they kind of get mixed up, but separate it for a moment and think of just your talents. These are like those God-given, innate things that you have no idea where they came from. You're just good at this. It's just a natural talent that you have. And whether you were born with it, whether you inherited it, or it just was developed in your formative years through programming, right? Through your parents, through teachers, things like that. And think of those raw talents as like eggs. Eggs in the context of an ingredient. Now you can do some amazing things just with this egg, right? You can fry it, you can scramble it, you can over hard, over easy, however you like your eggs. But what gets exciting is when you are combining eggs with other ingredients, and that's where the world opens up, right? Then you can bake cakes, you can do a lot of good things. So this is a little bit what talents and strengths are like. Think of the talents as the egg. It's like an ingredient, and you have all these ingredients. The strengths would be what's made from the talents. It's the cake, it's the souffle, it's the banana bread, it's the whatever. And those become strengths, right? And of course, out of those strengths, we're developing skills. And skills is usually what people find on their resume. And this is maybe a better way to look at it, is that you've got all these talents, the eggs. Each of the talent has strengths, right? And then as you even combine those talents, you combine those strengths. I mean, literally the possibilities are endless. They are limitless. So let's walk through an example of this. So on my Gallup Strength Finder, by the way, I don't promote Gallup stuff, but I use their stuff. But one of actually my number one talent on the Strength Finder is ideation. And so somebody with ideation, if you have ideation, you're very creative, you're original, you love to brainstorm with other people, right? Thinking about ideas. You're always looking for connections and new perspectives. You're able to see possibilities, right? So that helps you as a leader. You're good at helping others reframe things, see things from another angle. You can synthesize a lot of different ideas into simpler concepts, which is great for your own understanding, but also if you're teaching others, right? So there's a lot of strengths that come out of that talent of ideation. But like I said, then you combine your different talents and strengths, and that's where some amazing things happen. So, for example, another one of my top 5 talents is being a developer, right? Seeing the potential in others. It's just easy for me to do. I love to see progress, in people's growth. Developers are very encouraging. They like to help others experience success. So when you take something like a developer and you combine it with somebody who is, high in ideation, then this person they're going to have great creative ways at helping people grow, at developing people. They can probably use some of those strengths to teach, to create courses, right? Maybe to give speeches. Like, these are all things that I do. And so this is just an example of when you begin to understand more fully what your talents are and the strengths that come from them, you can begin to lean into those. And so before I get into that, I want you to think for a moment, like when you come into work on Monday, let's say you come in on Monday, and so this is what we do with our CEOs and our business owners, right? Because they're just so busy doing so many things, and we start to get them awakened to like who they are, their talents, their those strengths, and then to realize where should I be using these with my company. And of course, that usually means to start doing something you're not doing. But when you're already overloaded, it's going to mean you've got to offload tasks. So this is one of the first things that we help them do, is to understand these are some of my strengths that I'm not using that absolutely would help my company. And in order to do that, though, I'm going to have to offload some things. So, we help them do that so they begin to streamline. But I want you to imagine that you come in on a Monday morning and you're very dialed in on your superpower as a leader. And then you're looking at your week ahead and you're like, how can I use my superpowers in this? And let's stick with the superhero theme for a moment. Imagine, we see this in the movies, some Marvel movies. There's some crazy creature destroying the city, and let's say the Avengers all descend, and they all land on the street, and they're having this pre-meeting about like what are they going to do now about this evil villain. Well, each one of them has a special gift and strength. And of course, that's what they're going to use. It's not like, the person that turns everything into ice is going to think like, well, hey, how can I outmuscle this creature on the building? It's like, how can I use my ability of turning everything into ice to stop the villain? And that's what superheroes do, right? They're clear on what they're great at, and then they stick to it. So let's turn this over to you now. You come in on Monday morning and you start to think, look at my schedule ahead. These are the meetings I have. Here's maybe the client calls I have. Here's the coaching sessions I have with my managers. Here's the time I've carved out maybe just to think. And now begin to plot, how can I use my gifts, my strengths, my talents in those settings that I'm already in. Right? So, okay, for me, let's say I'm going to start the week, and I might think, okay, I got a one-on-one on Wednesday. Well, how am I going to use some of my gifts and talents and strengths to make a very impactful one-to-one? So it's probably going to involve some kind of developing, maybe even some brainstorming. Who knows? But that's the idea. It's getting self-aware of your strengths, and then it is being intentional about how you use them. You see, when it comes to leading, you got to be intentional. I mean, most people aren't even intentional about their life. They just go through life, get up the next day, okay, what's on the schedule, and they go through and they're not intentional. This is one of the messages that we keep telling like leaders all the time, like you've got to be intentional. Well, especially in this area. You've got these great gifts, you've got these superpowers, so let's be intentional in how we use them. If you're a business owner, you want to be thinking about this not only for you, but also for your staff. How can you, because part of your role is maximizing the potential of your people. Well, how do you maximize the potential of somebody? You get them running in the lane of their gifts, of their strengths, of their talents. And that becomes part of the role. Knowing what they are, and then being that strategic person that's like, okay, I need them to do more of this, I need them to do more of this, and I'm going to structure my company around people using their gifts and strengths. And of course, this dovetails into a conversation about hiring. And when it comes to hiring, yeah, you want to look for raw talent for sure, and you want to look for cultural fit. Of course, what do people do on resumes? They just want to look for what you've done. Now, it's not like of course, that's a good idea, because often what somebody has done is come out of some talents or strengths, but not always. And so instead of prioritizing accomplishments, because here I can accomplish something that looks impressive, but was way outside of my comfort zone. And I just did it because I had to do it. And it was like grit, sweat, blood, tears, like exhausted me. Maybe I was burnt out after, but I did it. So it might look really impressive on a resume, and you might look at that and go, oh, this is our guy, right? He's done this before. Meanwhile, I hated doing that. I felt drained doing that. I was burnt out after that, right? So if you're just looking at what somebody has done, you could be missing part of the picture. And so we've got to be able to look deeper about, and in our interviews, finding out what people's talents are. What do they find easy? What do they do well? Listen, even if they don't have the skills per se that you're looking for, if they have the talent that leads into those skills, awesome. They will pick up the skills easily. It will be natural to them. It's like a fish, learning to swim. It'll be more natural for them. And then, of course, we want to look for cultural fit as well, especially when you're a small company. So when it comes to finding out your strengths as a leader, obviously there's a bunch of different assessments out there. Actually, I'm going to post an article tomorrow on just comparing some of the main strength-based assessments. Right? There's Strength Finder, VI Character Strengths, 360 Feedback. So there's a bunch of them out there. So I'm going to write an article about that for tomorrow. But basically, I want you to be thinking about your strengths. I want you to be thinking about, if you don't know them, hey, find them out, right? Get one of those assessments and jump into it. And then begin asking yourself, when you come in to work on Monday, where do I need to apply my superpowers? Because that's where you're going to have the most impact, okay? So, anyways, jump into that. That's where you're going to have the most impact. This is all of our chances to be superheroes, right? Even in the workplace. Anyway, hey, leave a comment below. Love to hear from you.